Church intro video.
Church intro video. All right.
Happy Sunday, Pastor Bill.
Thank you, sir. Happy Sunday to your son. When is that big game that we're not allowed to say the name of? Is that next Sunday or the Sunday after? I don't know, dude. I don't even know how I would watch it. I guess I have Hulu Plus. I guess I could watch it live on some Hulu Plus channel. Although it airs while we're doing this, so.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it doesn't really do work to do the whole, we're going to watch the commercials on live.
No.
Because there's the delay and there's the, you know.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It is when we were all together and all that. But...
Yeah, when we were meeting face to face, it was much easier.
That's one of those things we lose out on. Biggs is here on Facebook for some reason.
I don't think the things I type into Discord, I don't think they show up on Facebook. So, unfortunately, but yours too. The things you type into Twitch or into your little Twitch interface there, they do show up on Facebook. But the things I type into the Discord client, they do not. Do I look like a Picasso painting to you? Because you're coming across Teams as a Picasso painting. Everything in the background's perfect, but your face, you have like 3 eyes, and you're really heavily pixelated, and everything keeps moving around your face.
Nope. It's internet issues, or you're drunk.
I'm definitely not drunk.
Okay, well, then it's internet issues. And I can even see what I'm sending you. Teams says it's perfectly clean. So, I don't know, homie. I'm gonna go.
Well, when I'm receiving it on this end...
Well, we all know how bad your internet is. So, this is not new. Stories.
Well, if you're new to the Berean Manifesto...
Bill's internet
I live
sucks.
way out in the country. And this is the best internet I could get. If you own a telecommunications company and you would like to expand into a rural area that is desperate for good internet, send me an email. I can let you know of several hundreds, if not thousands, of houses that are desperate for your services. We have to deal with things like CenturyLink only serving one side of the road and not the other, which I happen to live on the wrong side of the road for CenturyLink.
Well,
stuff like that.
There's other telcos that do the same thing. I mean, to be fair. To be fair.
But even when we had it, we maxed out our monthly limit like within the first week.
Yeah.
And then the internet was so slow we couldn't even use it. And then we had the same thing with HughesNet from DirecTV. We ended up blowing through our monthly allotment on HughesNet within the first day or two. But with this current, we get, unlimited, but then the speeds are not awesome. But they're more awesome than on the previous services. We went through our first little jolt of internet and then got nothing.
30 seconds. Yeah.
So, yeah. Alright. Oh, I forgot to turn on my live light so everybody would know that I'm live.
Oh, so he's watching through Twitch and he's responding through Facebook.
You had a funny thing?
10 seconds.
My wife had a funny thing. 10 seconds?
5 seconds.
5 seconds.
watching a movie. The guy
0
got up and the other
seconds.
here, and then he pulled his ear up to him and he said, "Now I'll ask you again." Where's Ray?
Hello
And
and welcome to season 3 episode. I can't remember now.
63, 63, 64,
64 of the Berean Manifesto.
67,
Faith, hope, 64.
64. Okay.
And love for the modern Christian. I'm Pastor Bill, and I'm joined by Pastor Nooms,
That's me.
all the way from the great state of Tennessee, and I am in the great state of Texas. I overheard my wife watching a video today about a Hobbit place you could go visit in Murfreesboro. Some kind of Shire-like bed and breakfast or something that you could go stay at. And I didn't know that, you live in that area, and I didn't know that was a thing even. And I was like, what?
That is odd.
I just thought of that when I was talking about you living in Tennessee. So, how was your week this week?
It was pretty good. Busy. Very busy. Both the girls were out of the house this weekend, so it was just adults in the house, so that was interesting. Rain had her first youth conference, because she's technically in middle school, and Serafina stayed with my parents. Hello, Mr. Groggy. Groggy just joined us on Twitch. So it
playing
was
Call of Duty and attending church at the same time. That's how we like it. Welcome, Groggy. Sorry,
looks like it's an Airbnb.
He's on Discord, and it says he's playing Call of Duty, and he's coming to church at the same time, and that is absolutely fine with us. I actually really like that. I'm the kind of guy that gets bored during church, even when the pastor's saying stuff that I'm totally on board with. My brain's going, but there's so many more things to be done, and I got to do something to reel myself in.
I gotta say, I don't dig it.
You don't dig it? The bed and breakfast thing?
It's 2 guests, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 1 bedroom, 1 bed, half bath, kitchen, free parking. And it's cute-ish, but it's above ground. And to me, that's not...
It's supposed to be built into a hill.
Yeah.
At least buy the dirt and make it look like it's in a hill.
I mean, it looks nice other than that, but they are a super host, and it is $88 a night. But
no bathtub or shower.
Just
a toilet and a sink.
And it's a double bed.
So for 1 person for the night, not 2.
But it's nice. Lots
Hello,
of people
Phoenix.
love it.
Phoenix is here on Twitch. Biggs is here, chatting with us via Facebook. Normally he chats via Twitch.
But he's watching.
Groggy's here. So how was your week, Pastor Nooms? Did we got a little side railed by, because you said it was good, but then we started talking about.
I just said it was busy, and then the girls were gone. That's really all that.
That's all that your week consisted of?
Yeah.
The girls were gone, and it was busy.
We did play.
There was a plumbing emergency in your house this week.
Oh yeah.
There was.
Yeah, we had a plumbing emergency that got resolved.
By it not being an emergency at all.
Yeah. Our
plumber
sinks
showed up and was like, "Thanks for calling me for my common sense."
So our sinks, the way the house is built, the faucets are very small. So if it's barely dripping, or dripping just a little, it gets on the counter instead of in the bowl because the faucets are so small. So apparently, what happened is, in the middle of the night, someone got up to
You
use the
need
restroom.
longer spigot parts.
Someone got up to use the restroom. I guess they washed their hands, and then went back to bed. And they did not turn the faucet off all the way, and so all night it ran, and it ran onto the floor, and actually dripped into the garage.
Through the floor.
Yeah.
Into the garage.
But it, the damage isn't bad. It's not nothing to worry about. Nothing we have to change or do. It's just one of those like, oh.
Got to dry it all out.
Yeah. And then, so they came and the guy did something I didn't even think of doing, which was shutting off the water and seeing if the pressure continues to move, because there's a pressure gauge inside the house. And so he turns off the water, hits the pressure gauge, and of
you
course...
just let it keep dripping? You didn't turn off the water?
No.
At this...
No, it was off. I had turned off the sink.
Oh.
And
okay.
so... But we thought it was a leak behind it or something. Which he turned off the water, and then there's a pressure gauge that reads your pressure the whole time. Well, if you have a leak, that pressure gauge is of course going to drop, because you have a leak. The pressure is going to be gone.
There's water going out.
And it didn't drop. So he was like, I don't think you have a leak. Can we go look at the bathroom? Yeah. Go in there. He looks at it, and I told him. As soon as he said it, I was like, I know what happened. Called one of the children upstairs, and they confirmed what I thought, that it was dripping slightly when they had gotten up, but, didn't think about relaying that information. Just the information that there was water on the floor. So, it was okay. No actual emergency. But it was just really, and both the girls were like, "We're so sorry. We'll help pay for him to come out, and we'll this and we're that." And it's like, girls, that's not a it's not a big deal. That's the least of my worries right now.
C'est la vie.
Yeah, this is nothing. And he apologized. He's like, "I'm sorry, I do have to charge you because we had to come out and stuff." And I'm like, "There's no reason to apologize. I mean, it's a learning experience. I now know to check my pressure gauge before I call you."
Yeah.
But it was,
if you came out and you didn't teach me anything and then charged me, then we're going to have a problem.
Yeah. So, Biggs will have to... it is on our list to change all the faucets in the house, which is 5 of them, because they're all the same and they all do the same issue in the bathrooms. For those 5. So, and I've had it happen because one of the kitties turned off. We let one of the sinks drip, and he turned it off by nuzzling it enough to where it dripped all over my counter. I just happened to catch it quicker than the morning.
Yeah.
So, and of course it's cold and wet right now, so drying it out has been a challenge.
Difficult. Yeah.
But overall it's good.
Good.
And then we finished Borderlands 1 in Gaming with the Pastors, which is a big deal. And then we finished it as much as we gonna finish it.
We didn't complete it, but we finished it.
No, technically we completed the game. We did not fully complete 2 of the DLCs because we're not going to sit there and grind for hours and hours and hours on camera, because that's not conducive to Bill's play style, nor is it conducive to fun Twitch watching.
Right.
But we've started Borderlands 2, and that's fun.
Right off the bat, they learned their lesson in Borderlands 1. Don't give me an hour of gameplay that is boring and too challenging to make it through without dying a billion times. Make it fun from the beginning. They learned that lesson.
You can still
Borderlands
die
2
a
is
billion
fun.
times.
From the first, yeah, you still die a billion times as long as it's fun. And Borderlands 2, they did it. They made it fun from moment one. So
they ramp it up from the intro video.
Yeah.
There's one thing I get very disappointed about Borderlands 2 though, and I will say it even though we haven't gotten to through the whole game, is the opening song. So in the first game, it becomes, they play it like a couple times during the game. I think that's Cage the Elephant. The No Rest for the Wicked. I don't know the name of the song. That song, they play it several times throughout the game. It's at the intro, it's the exit, it's the, and so to those of us that played it a bunch the first time, it's kind of, that song is Borderlands, and so the fact that the song's not there, right off the bat is very, very frustrating. And I waited for it the whole game, because I was like, they gotta play it at some point, because this is they gotta do it, and yeah. So that's one thing. I know you're like, wait, that's a thing, and to me, yes. I still, there's still a particular band, if I listen to it, I immediately want to play Pokemon. Because I listened to the CDs when I played the first Pokemon on my Game Boy, and so music is very important to me, and so yeah, that's one thing I don't like. How was your week, Pastor Bill?
It was good. We started playing Borderlands 2, like you said. There was this moment where we ran through this thing, and there was this homage to the Ninja Turtles. That was fun. We delivered a pizza, and then we had to fight these little mutant guys. They were more mouse ninja type guys, but we had to fight them. And they were named Leo, Dan, Mike. And then we had to solve this light puzzle where we clicked different electronics in their layer to get all these lights lighted up. And then Flinter crawled up out of a hole on the ground, and we had to fight Flinter. It was a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed that. I started working for Uber and Lyft again in the mornings this week. So that's been interesting. And then I apologize to those of you that listen to the podcast. I worked Tuesday morning, and then usually Tuesday afternoon, I work on the podcast. I get the transcription done, and I push it, schedule it to push, and yada, yada. Totally didn't happen. I went on a date with my wife instead. Totally didn't follow back up on Wednesday morning. So the podcast didn't actually come out until Saturday morning. With no transcription, by the way. So that happened. And my apologies for that late pushing of the last episode of the podcast. Hopefully I can do... Huh? My wife's over here telling on me. Because I told her it's one of those sorry, not sorry things. I had more important things to take care of. Which was going on a date with my wife. So, my wife's over here telling on me. All right, so that was my week. So now it's time for getting to know the pastors. And we are on Pastor Nooms' card this week.
And I, of course, already had it ready. I didn't just reach for it. I remembered.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
This is
your favorite bit.
In your opinion,
this is going to get dirty.
What is the most beautiful man-made...
Didn't mean that kind of dirt.
Man-made object in the world?
Maybe I can explain this without tearing up. Maybe.
Maybe. Okay.
Maybe. So, the Washington Monument is two-tone. At the bottom, the building was started by slave labor. And when slavery ended officially in the United States and the slaves were free, from that point on, it was built by paid laborers and has a different color. And the beauty of that moment being immortalized in stone has always stuck out to me.
Interesting. I actually did not know that about the Washington Monument.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What about yourself?
I
Now we're talking man-made objects, so you could be like, so I'll tell you what my number 2 is. My number 2 is the Motorola Razr flip phone circa 2006 or 2007. That's my number 2 most beautiful man-made item.
I there's a lot running through my head as far as technology goes. Paintings that are amazing, sculptures. There's a lot. Movies, pictures. There's just a lot that's running through my head. And I can't really put my thumb on any of them. So I'm going to say something that's not in existence yet. It's in the trial stages, but there's about, I want to say there's 3 to 4, maybe more now, companies working on it. But it's a brain-to-computer interface. Similar to what's used in SAO, Sword Art Online. Similar to what's used in lots of sci-fi. Something you put on, not plug in is the goal, but plug in I'm fine with too.
Plug in is terrifying.
That allows you to interface with computers, technology, prosthetics, everything, just using the mind. And there's a lot of companies working on it, and there's a lot of it's moving forward quickly. But as someone who struggles with arthritis, whose hands don't work correctly anymore, that's something that I find to be very beautiful, that we can interface without touching. And that's something that I think it'll be great for a lot of reasons and terrifying for others. But I think it's something that will really help a lot of disabled, a lot of people who have accidents, a lot of people who have degenerative disorders. I think it's going to be a big thing, and I think it's really cool how close we are. So that's probably my thing. I know the one getting the most publicity is I'm a spaceman, I drive cars, I own cars. Musk. Elon Musk has one called I'm explaining how my mind got to Elon Musk.
I'm a spaceman, I drive cars. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Buzz Aldrin. I don't know where we're going with this.
We got there. Elon Musk's Neuralink is one of the ones that's getting the most publicity as far as news and stuff, just because, well, he's the most open about it. He likes to hear himself talk, I believe. So because of that, we hear about it. So I think that would be mine, is that technological jump is going to make a lot of changes because I wouldn't need input devices. And for someone who has recently had to stop playing certain games because I can't anymore, because my hands twitch, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that's just something I've dealt with. I know I have friends that have dealt with that forever, and I can't imagine. So,
Right.
So yeah, that's probably what I would say, is that technological leap is going to be a big deal.
Cool. Okay. All right. So tonight's episode, I titled the episode "The Piece of Samson," and spoiler alert, that was a sarcastic or an ironic name, because that's not a thing for Samson. There is no piece for Samson.
I would actually disagree with that.
You think so?
Yeah. I think his final moments, he had made peace with,
With his suicidal intent?
well, not just that, but with his responsibility for everything he did, his role in it, you know, turning things over to God. I think it's a decent redemption arc as well. I assume that's where you were going with it, was as
All right, so
pillars fell,
we've mentioned
there was peace.
We've mentioned recently how Judges is this book of cautionary tales, right? Don't do things this way. But I also want to pull out this other way that I've started to look at Judges over time. And that is, let me explain this, is that yes, they had a series of people who judged Israel, right? One of them being Samson. But also, this is a list of people of whom the Israelites were judged on whether or not they were ready to step into being the people the Messiah could come to. And proved over and over and over again that they weren't. They weren't ready. And so we're going to look at just Samson. We're going to go through Samson's story. And we're going to look at how this all plays out, right? Okay. So the angel of the Lord comes to his parents, Manoah and his wife. His wife's name is the woman.
No.
I don't think it ever actually gives her name.
Does it not?
It always calls her the woman or Manoah's wife. Okay.
That is, I've never noticed that.
Yeah. So the angel of the Lord appears to the woman, and tells her she's going to have a baby, and the baby's going to be a Nazarite, which basically means he's going to be committed to God, to a purpose. He's going to live a life set apart to be holy, and there's going to be rules that they're going to have to follow with his life. And The woman goes and tells her husband, and the husband's like, well, I hope the angel comes back so he can tell me what he told you, and so we can, both be on the same page. The angel does come back to the woman and is like, come talk to my husband. The angel comes and talks to the husband, basically tells him the same thing he told her. They get a little bit more detail. They want to have a sacrificial meal for this guy, and the angel of the Lord, whom they don't know is the angel of the Lord. They just believe he's this handsome fella. And he says, no, I'm not going to eat any of your food. Should have been a red flag there that they're not talking to a human being. But if you need to make a sacrifice to the Lord. So they sacrifice a goat, and the angel of the Lord places, the sacrifice in the fire, and then rises up in the smoke. And the man, Manoah, looks at his wife and says, we're certainly going to die because we have seen God. So he believed this was God. And Phoenix, thank you for asking for references. And Pastor Nooms, thank you for typing that in on your Twitch interface, since your Twitch interface is the only one that actually shows up on all of the
I actually
things.
use the Restream client, but that's okay.
Maybe that's the one that shows up. I don't know. Anyway, and his wife, this voice of reason, whose name I wish we knew, but we don't, she turns to him and says, if the Lord had intended to kill us, he wouldn't have accepted the burnt offering and the grain offering. He wouldn't have shown us all these things or spoken to us like he did. And then she gives birth to Samson, and the boy grows up. And the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him in the camp of Dan between Zorah and Eshtaol. So Samson goes down to Timnah, and he sees a young Philistine woman there. Now, the Philistines...
I thought it was Philistine,
whatever, are ruling over Israel right now because the Israelites had once again turned away from the Lord and the things that they were told they were supposed to be doing things. So they were given over to the Philistines again. He sees a Philistine woman and he wants to marry her. So he goes back and tells his mother and his father. His mother and father say, can't you find someone that's, in relative distance, or one of your own people? Why do you have to get a Philistine? And he says, no, I want this woman. And the text says that they didn't know that this was actually part of the plan of the Lord, trying to get the Philistines to react, trying to get the Philistines to step into a conflict. This is okay. Samson is ready for his first trial of proving that they're ready, that as a people they've grown up and they can handle having Messiah be born. So Samson, he goes down to Timnah with his father and mother to the vineyards, and a young lion comes roaring out at him. The Spirit of the Lord comes on him, and he tears the lion apart with his bare hands, just like he's done, preparing sacrifices of a goat or preparing a goat for a meal. He tears it apart, and he's, off on the trail by himself. He doesn't tell his mother and his father that it happened. And they do all this, they meet the young woman and they decide, okay, this is fine, we can do this. After some time, he returns to the woman to marry her, and he leaves the road to go see the lion's carcass because, I fully, as a guy, I fully understand. I'm going to go look at that thing I killed and bask in the glory of my adventures. And so he goes to look at the lion's carcass, and he finds a honeycomb and a swarm of bees in the lion. This part I can't relate to. So he scoops up a bunch of the honey and starts eating it. And when he gets home, he gives the rest of it to his father and his mother, but he doesn't tell them that he pulled this honey out of a beehive from a lion's carcass.
which he never should have touched.
Weird, bro. Yeah, he shouldn't have touched a dead thing
As a
Nazirite.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to prepare a feast, and Samson, he goads the Philistines at this feast and says, "Let me tell you a riddle," and settles on an agreement of who's going to pay what if they can't solve the riddle. And he tells them riddle, and he says, "Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet." And I know that rhymes in English the way they translated it, but I guarantee you it does not rhyme in the original language, and so it doesn't sound so poetic. And obviously we know what he's talking about because we just read the story about he killed a lion, and out of the lion he got honey, right? He's talking about this thing that happened. After 3 days, they were unable to explain the riddle. On the 4th day, they said to Samson's wife, persuade your husband to explain the riddle to us, or we will burn you and your father's family to death. Now, what's this wife's name?
Don't know.
We don't know. They didn't tell us. Another woman in this story here that we don't know her name.
Yep.
I'm not happy about this story. All right. So she goes crying to Samson, "You hate me and don't love me. You told my people the riddle, but haven't explained it to me." And he says, "I haven't even told my father and mother about it. Why should I tell you?" And so she continues to cry for the whole 7 days of the feast. And on the last, so this is a wedding feast. This is a standard 7-day Israelite wedding feast. This is nothing, weird about this. This is the normal thing. And on the last day, he finally gives in because she's nagging him. Not my words, the Bible's words, nagging him so much, and he tells her, and so she goes and tells the guys. And they answer it. And he says, "If you hadn't plowed with my young cow, you wouldn't know my riddle now." Dude, that was rude. "The Spirit of the Lord came up powerfully upon him." All right. This is the actual test. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him. What's he going to do? Is he going to preach to them about the law and righteousness and let them know about the way God wants things to be done, and did it prove that they're worthy, that they've grown up, that they're worthy of the Messiah? No. He's going to go down to Ashkelon, and he's going to use his God-given ability. Instead of preaching about the Lord, he's going to use his God-given ability to kill 30 men and strip them of their clothes in order to pay the debt for the riddle that they answered. Fail. And then he goes home angry to his family's house. And so the father of the girl that he's just married a week ago goes, "Oh, he must be mad at her. He must hate her. He must want a divorce. He must want an annulment." And so the father then gives her to another man to be that man's wife. Okay? So then later, Samson comes back during the wheat harvest, and he takes a young goat with him because he wants to bring her a gift. He says he wants to see her in her room. The father says, "No, you left. I gave her away. I thought you hated her." Hated is a very important word there because that's the word they needed to use to explain the father thought he wanted a divorce. He hated her. That's your clue that what happened there. Here, take her younger sister. She's more beautiful than she is anyway. And Samson said to them, and this is great because even if you disagree with me about him going and killing 30 men, Samson says, "This time I will be blameless when I harm the Philistines." So even Samson's looking back going, "I really shouldn't have gone and killed those 30 guys. That was a wrong move.
I was pushing it.
I probably shouldn't have done that." Right? So he went and caught 300 foxes. This guy's vindictive.
Very.
Um,
And
tied their tails.
really good at things.
Really good at things. Tied their tails to each other in pairs, right? And then tied torches into the tails, then lit the torches and set the foxes down. And we're talking 300 foxes, so 150 pairs, 150 torches. Set them down on the edges of the grain fields. It is time for the wheat harvest. All of this is fully grown grain that is meant to feed families and armies and, thousands of people. Burns the field down. And the Philistines come and ask, who did this? And they were told it was Samson, the Timonite's son-in-law, because he took Samson's wife and gave her to his companion. So the Philistines went to her and her father and burned them to death. He burned down the fields and starved the Philistines. So they burned his father-in-law and wife to death. So then Samson tears the party of men that did that limb from limb. Not his finest moment.
Is that when he used a jawbone?
Nope. That hasn't happened yet.
Okay. I just read it.
Then he goes
earlier.
down to hide in a cave at the rock of Etam. And the Philistines go up and they camped in Judah and raided Lehi. So Lehi is so basically Israel exists as a conglomeration of tribes. And each of these tribes are descended from, one of the children of so far. And so this is the tribe of Lehi that's being raided. And so the men of Judah ask, why have you attacked us? And they replied, we came to tie Samson up and pay him for what he did to us. So Samson burns down their fields, so they burn his husband, his father-in-law and wife, so he rips that party limb to limb. So now they're going to attack a nearby, Jewish settlement because of it. Then 3,000 men of Judah. So they gather together 3,000 Israeli men to go capture Samson. Because, one, the dude can rip a lion apart with his bare hands. Two, he got this long hair that he keeps in 7 braids. So we're talking, this guy's probably got like a massive head, like the size of the rock. They're afraid of this guy. What's up?
Nothing. Continue.
What? You're smiling and...
There's something I hate about portrayals of super strong people.
What's that?
People like Samson, what Superman would actually look like, things like that. About how they always are skinny, ripped, like you mentioned, The Rock. That's what a lot of people think of, The Rock. But then, like, it's not how they would end up looking.
Well, not Superman, no, because you actually have to challenge your muscles to build muscle mass.
And a true power lifter looks more like a Samoan, or more like, you look at
The Rock.
Yes, but I mean a typical, not someone who diets to cut their body fat.
Oh, so you mean the guy who played Aquaman?
I mean him normally.
Yeah.
Not when he's cut for a movie. But the true power lifters even make them look small. Those guys who compete in the men's strongest man, not a single one of them is cut in any way, shape, form, or idea. They're barrel-chested, hefty people, and so
All right. So either way, he was intimidating.
He was a big dude. Either way.
He's a big dude.
But-
Okay, let's see. So they come to him and they tell him, "We've come to tie you up and hand you over to the Philistines." Of which he replied, "Swear to me that you yourselves won't kill me." So basically he's saying, I don't believe in killing Israelites. I don't believe in killing Jews. But if you come at me, I will defend myself. So if you swear to me that you won't kill me, I'll go with you. I'll let you tie me up. That's fine. So tied him up, and they took him to the Philistines, right? And let's see. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully on him. Here we go again. Are you going to prove it? Are you going to prove that you're worthy, that the people are worthy? And the ropes that were on his arms and wrists became like burnt flax and fell off. He found a fresh jawbone of a donkey, reached out his hand, took it, and killed 1,000 men with it.
Again, touching something dead he shouldn't have.
Touched something dead. Killed 1,000 men. What should he have done? Well, when Jesus had an angry mob coming after him to stone him, he simply walked through them in peace and walked away. There's other examples. But this was not the correct answer. He says, with the jawbone of a donkey, I've piled them in heaps. With the jawbone of a donkey, I've killed 1,000 men. When he finished speaking, he threw away the jawbone and named the place Ramath Lehi. He became very thirsty, called to the Lord, "You have accomplished this great victory through your servant." So he gives God credit for, got that person on YouTube trolling again. He gives God credit for what he just did. And then it says, must I now die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised? And so God responds, as God always does. Even when we screw up, God responds. God knows what we need. And when we ask him in, well, this is a passionate ask, but it's a sincere one. God split the hollow place in the ground, and water came after it. And after Samson drank, his strength returned, and he revived. So yeah, I think it was rather draining to kill 1,000 men with the jawbone of a donkey. All right. So it doesn't tell us how much time passes, but it does tell us that the time of Samson as a quote-unquote judge in Israel was for 20 years. 20 years total. But then the Bible goes on to tell us another story about Samson.
Mm-hmm.
We know it happened sometime after the first story, but we don't know how long after. We're assuming it's sometime closer to the end of his time because the story ends with his death. So we're assuming it's somewhere closer to the end of the 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So Samson goes to Gaza, and he sees a prostitute, and he decides to hire her. So he goes out and he hires himself a whore. Now, when the Gazites heard that Samson was there, now these are not Philistines. These are another group of people that live in the area. When you hear about Jebusites and Ammonites and Amorites, and these are the Jezites. Or Gazites, heard that Samson was there. How did they hear he was there? Well, this is probably a brothel. This probably isn't just one lady turning tricks. This is probably an actual brothel. They surrounded the place and waited in ambush for him all that night at the city gate. Right? So they're at the gate. They're waiting. They kept quiet all night, saying, "Let's wait until dawn when we will kill him." But Samson stayed in bed only until midnight. Right? And so I imagine if this was in a movie, you'd see Samson. He gets up at midnight. And he's like, hey, I'm going to finish my journey. And then he hears whispering coming through the window of the building. Oh, we're going to wait until the sun comes up. Then we're going to really get him. We're going to kill Samson. And he's like, nope. So he takes hold of the doors of the city gate, pulls them out, bar and all, puts them on his shoulders, and takes them to the top of the mountain overlooking Hebron. It doesn't say how many people died in this event, but anyone outside the city walls, they were dead. Anyone living on the city walls, they were dead. Anyone living just inside the city walls, they died too. This is basically, I mean, it when you flick a domino and they just go toot 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 toot. This is what happened. He pulled up the city gates and the walls would have just gone toot 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 and fallen all the way around the city. The city would have no more walls, and the walls, people lived in the walls, people lived on the walls, people lived around the walls. A lot of people died at this point. Now, sometime later, he meets Delilah. He's just now meeting Delilah. And she lived in the Sorek Valley. The Philistine leaders went to her and said, persuade him to tell you where his strength comes from so we can overpower him, tie him up, and make him helpless. Each of us will then give you 1,100 pieces of silver. Now, by this point, Samson's used to being tricked and lied to. And let's not forget his first wife, who literally manipulated him and nagged him into giving her the answers so she could betray him.
So he has trust issues.
He now has trust issues. So they offer her 1,100 pieces of silver, and she agrees to do it. So she asks him, he lies to her, they try it fails. She asks again, he lies to her, they try it fails. She asks again, and he's like, let's see, the third time, he lies to her again. They try it fails. And she's like, okay, you gotta tell me what this is. How can you say you love me and you won't actually tell me the truth? At this point, he should have just walked away. I mean, because the Philistines showed up every time and tried the exact thing they told her. He should have just walked away. And so he tells her the truth. And then he goes to take a nap on her lap. And she summons the Philistines, and they come, and they use a razor, and they shave his head. He wakes up. His head's been shaven. He doesn't have his strength. They seize him. They gouge out his eyes. They take him to Gaza, and they imprison him. And so he's in prison, and his hair begins to grow back. This is not his hair begins to grow back. This is a example of how long he sits in this prison. His hair started to grow back from being shaved and clean. Like, noticeably, hair is growing back. The Philistine leaders gathered together to offer a great sacrifice to their god, Dagon. They rejoiced and said, our God has handed over our enemy Samson to us. When the people saw him, they praised their God and said, our God has handed over to us our enemy, who destroyed our land and who multiplied our dead. When they were in good spirits, they said, bring Samson here to entertain us. So they brought Samson from prison, and he entertained them. They had him stand between the pillars. This was not smart on their part. That wasn't intelligence. This guy who's gotten his power supernaturally somehow, we removed it temporarily. Let's put him in between the two lodestones, pillars, that are literally holding up the whole Colosseum that we're in. The Temple Colosseum. And he calls out to you, young man, lead me where I can feel the pillars supporting the temple so I can lean against them. So the young man leads him over, and there were about 3,000 men and women on the roof of the temple watching through the center hole. So, it's a ring like this, and there's space for people to stand around the ring like a coliseum, and then there's seating on the inside, and it's all built looking towards this statue of Dagon, who is basically a merman, if you want to envision. So he's got this fish body coming down with fins, and then from the waist up he's a human visage, the statue of Dagon, where they'd worship Dagon and hold ceremonies and yada yada. Yeah, here we go. And so he's standing in between these two pillars, and the pillars are close enough that not only can he touch them with both hands, but then he can outstretch his arms in order to push them over. It says, he called to the Lord, Lord God, please remember me. Strengthen me, God, just once more with one act of vengeance. Let me pay back the Philistines for my 2 eyes. Samson took hold of the 2 middle pillars supporting the temple and leaned against them, one on his right hand and the other on his left. Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. He pushed with all his might, and the temple fell on the leaders and all the people in it, and those he killed in his death were more than those he had killed in his life. And once again, what did he do with the gifts God had given him? Did he go, look, my God has returned my strength to me, and you too can worship the one true God, the God of Israel, and instead of worshiping this idol, that I'll tear down this idol, because there's a one true God who wants you to follow him, and nope. He decides to get revenge and take vengeance, pushes the pillars, and commits suicide, and taking 3,000 plus men and women with him. And while, yes, there may have been some semblance of peace there at that very last moment, as you pointed it out, it's the direction you thought I was going. My main point here is Judges is a book of cautionary tales. And we can see in the story of Samson over and over and over how we can look at it and go, okay, cool, I'm not supposed to use my spiritual gift to blah. And that's throughout all the book of Judges. Examples of, okay, I'm not supposed to use the word of the Lord for blah. Okay, I'm not supposed to use my influence for blah. Okay, I'm not supposed to do it this way. I'm not supposed to do it this way. I'm not supposed to do it that way. And Samson is this really good example of, people tout this story of, oh, he was a mighty man of God and the Holy Spirit came on him so that he could kill 1,000 men with the jawbone of a donkey. Except that's not what the story's saying at all. It says the Spirit of the Lord came upon him and he chose to use that in that manner. The Lord didn't tell him to dig up a donkey jaw and go kill those people. The Lord didn't tell him to go kill 30 people and strip them of their clothes to pay his debt from a bet he made. But he did. Anyway. Names, what do you have to say about all that?
Well, I agree with you that
that's boring. Tell me what you don't agree with.
I'm getting there. That
okay,
the Lord, this was not how the story should have went. I will say that I believe he was supposed to do more and supposed to free them from the Philistines, which typically every time that happened, it was through lots of murder. But he made a lot of mistakes along the way, which made it end the way it did. I do think that his spiritual gifting was towards strength, not towards speaking or towards any of that. And he could have used it differently, but typically when the Lord was ready to pull the Israelites back, it was through battle. Not every time, but typically. Um, so I think he was supposed to use his strength to free the people. I just don't think he should have been doing it in the way that he did it, instead of leading the Israelite army and becoming this captain and steward and let's free the people. He
Yeah.
lived a life of vice and um, probably could have done a lot more. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Bible calls out, and he killed more in his death than he did in his life.
Yeah.
In reading that part, it's always come to me that he could have done more throughout his life, leading the armies, leading the, freeing the people like he was supposed to do, according to what the angel said.
That was the angel called it the start of the deliverance of the Israelites from the Philistines.
Yeah, the beginning.
Yeah.
And I
if
feel
he converted the Philistines to Judaism, it would have had the same effect. It would have been the start of their.
I would disagree with that, but that's
in my
fine.
brain. I always think back to the story of Dinah. Horrible story. There's forced intimacy involved, and ultimately things start to go the right way. Hey, if you want to marry my daughter, you've got to convert. You need to become a believer. You've got to convert. You've got to go through these steps. You've got to become one of us. That was the right plan. That was the right idea. The whole city converts. The whole city converts. Every last man becomes circumcised and commits their faith to God, which was the right thing to have happen. And then the brothers decide, well, while they're weak from the circumcision, let's just go kill them all.
Yeah.
And that was the wrong decision.
And I get that from that standpoint, but the
I'm not saying I don't understand their rage and their anger. I do, 100%. I understand the rage and the anger, and I think that she deserved better than to be treated like she did by that prince.
Oh, of course.
No one should ever be treated that way.
No.
But when the whole city converted, that should have been, that should have been the end of that, in that aspect.
Yeah, I get that. But I do think often there was so much strife between those people groups, there still would have been issues. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. So, our takeaways are, don't be quoting the book of Judges as this is the way we should do things.
Yeah.
Because that's not what it is.
No.
And we're following on this idea again from last week of don't say things that you're going to do things that counter, run contrary to this idea of what we know the Lord wants and the way we're supposed to be living, and which right now is love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And just as important, love your neighbor as yourself. Don't forget, you can't love your neighbor unless you've learned to love yourself. So there's this whole, point of order there. And that when we're dealing with religious things, prophecies fade, doctrine fades, theology fades. The only thing that's important that remains is faith, hope, and love. Faith in God, hope in the promises of God, and love your God and your neighbor as yourself. So these are the things we should be focused on: faith, hope, and love, and growing in these areas. Personal growth, not weaponized belief. This is not a weapon against another human being. This is a tool that can be turned into a weapon in prayer and used against the things that are trying to bring you down. Oh, well, you're telling me that I'm worthless and unloved, but the Bible says that God loved me, so he sent his son to die, and God knew me before he formed me in the womb. How could I be worthless if God formed me in the womb? And how could I be unloved if God took the time to form me in my mother's womb and sent his son to die for me? And you're telling me these lies, but I've got this ammo here that tells me completely different.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is for. This is not to be used against another human being. I'm touching my Bible if you can't see it. I set it down and started touching it, but
They couldn't, but that was probably good for you to, because I knew what you were talking about, so it's probably good that you shared that.
So that's what I've got for you this week. So, do you have anything else you want to add, Pastor Nooms? Or do you think you said your piece?
No, I think it's good.
Okay. I love you guys. Hope you have a great week.
Be safe out there.
And until next time. All right.
Now for our people that are here,
you know what's coming.
What we have to do next.
30-second buffer. 30-second buffer. 30-second buffer. Has it been 30 seconds yet? No, that's not how time works. 30-second buffer. 30-second buffer. 30-second buffer. You sounded so enthused. No, that's not how time works. Come on, Eeyore. Give it the program.
All right. Love you guys. Be safe.